Everything is merrily, merrily, merrily. It was finally my turn. I'm so excited. So hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm doing a lot of makeup videos because I've been sick. I went and saw a bunch of things and then I got really sick. So I'm delayed in talking about the things. So the next show that I'm going to be talking about is Merrily We Roll Along, the recent revival. It was always a limited engagement, and if I remember correctly, it was supposed to end sooner than this, but I want to say in December they did an extension, and the second they dropped tickets, I bought tickets because at first I was looking at the prices and I was like, oh, I guess I'm not going to see Merrily. I decided to do something that I've actually never actually done before. On purpose, I bought tickets to sit in the very last row, but it's all relativity. Sitting in the very last row of the Hudson Theater is not the same as probably the Gershwin. Not even 1,000 seats in this thing. So no matter where you sit, it's probably intimate. I was not unhappy with my selection. I do recommend the last row of the Hudson Theater. Merrily only has a week and change left at the time of recording this. If you are an unfortunate soul who has not gotten to see it, my heart breaks for you, but don't despair. I wanted to go for a couple reasons. First of all, I love all things Sondheim. Got to check out all the Sondheim. This is a famous flop. The first time it came out, it didn't do well, closed after 2 weeks. And yes, it doesn't hurt that it has really big stars being pushed through all the advertising. So I knew nothing of this show except that whatever the story was, that it tells it in reverse chronological order. Very Sondheim. Not his idea. Apparently, it's based on a play that also does the same thing. So he just took that and said, hey, what if I put it to music? And there we go. I mean, it wasn't his idea. Pretty sure it was Hal Prince's idea. Anyway, that's not why you're here. You're probably here because you know a little something. Now, they pushed these three people. So we have Jonathan Groff, Daniel Radcliffe, and Lindsay Mendez. And from the advertisement, I was under the impression that this was a 3-person, like even tiered experience. Like you got to go and you have to hope that you get all 3 of them because it's the 3 of them that together that makes the magic. But that's not the show I got. Now, I loved this show. Let me just start off on the top. Loved it, had a great time, did not disappoint because I love me some Sondheim. But it wasn't what I was expecting because to me, it's not really about the 3 of them. Really, it's Jonathan Groff's character is the clear lead. I saw this show just days after the Tony Awards, so the show was nominated for 7 awards and it won 4 out of the 7. So it got Best Revival, which is correct. It got Best Orchestrations. I haven't seen everything, but from just based on this, I don't think it's weird that doesn't feel like a random win. That feels deserved. Jonathan Groff and Daniel Radcliffe each won. Jonathan Groff for Best Leading Performance and Daniel Radcliffe for a featured. Now, a lot of people get confused by that word, by a featured role. You know, the fast definition is they're just not the main character. But for some people, they're more of a supporting character because the Oscars still uses that verbiage of like in a supporting role. I thought the 3 of them were going to be equally important and they were going to be, it was going to be their story, like very laser focused on the 3 of them. It's not that it's not about them. It's really Jonathan Groff's character. His name is Frank. It's Frank's story. Frank is on stage almost the entire time. Lindsay and Daniel's characters pop in and out, and there are times when they're largely absent. It's not a bad thing. It's just the marketing to me is confusing because I thought it was about the 3 of them. I thought it was like the 3 Musketeer kind of like, oh, well, it's going to be you watch just the 3 of them do something in reverse. That's not really what the show is at all. If you don't know, if you're like me, you don't know anything about Merrily prior to watching it, yes, it's telling the story of individuals who are in the artistic industry. We're seeing a certain point in time in their life where Frank has really made it big. but we slowly go back in time to see how it all got to be to this point. And you go back to their origin where they all meet and they're nobody. And obviously, some questions that the show raises is how does money and success and fame and whatnot change you? Now that sounds like a tried and true story. It kind of is, but it's such a wildly different take. It's unexpected because it's not really about all three of them at all times. We really spend time with Frank, and so it's more him grappling with the choices he's made. Now, my observation is it's not a story where they were wholesome and innocent and then time changed them. If you really look at who they are as people, now this is only from one viewing for me, they are who they are. They don't really change, they just get more bitter with time. That feels more appropriate. So it feels more organic. It actually feels more like what actually happens to people. You're not who you, when you're 40, you're not who you were when you were 20. Your core self is still you. But life does have a way of changing you, but there's certain elements that are always there. This does a very good job of exploring that. I would not have pushed Daniel Radcliffe and Lindsay Mendez as hard as the marketing does. I was nervous with the show. I was like, if this show better not be garbage with really good stunt casting. That's what I was afraid I was walking into. I was like, no, it's Sondheim. It's got to be good. But even Sondheim can be guilty of a flop. But really, Frank has two wives over the course of the story here. And I would say the wives have way more to do. Now, his first wife doesn't show up until well into Act One. But once we see her, we spend some real time with her. And his second wife is definitely present throughout. I'm like, what? Why aren't we talking about these ladies? Gussie and Beth. This should be the Frank, Gussie, and Beth show. Danny Radcliffe does a good job. He has one solo song that's clearly very difficult. Does a good job. But he's so absent because it's important for the story. So I understand why he was very much labeled a featured actor. This wasn't something where it's like you had two leads and you had to pick one to push to be the front runner in the race. He's not a lead character. So they both won their respective Tonys, and that is correct based on the shows I've seen so far. Lindsay was nominated for Best Featured Actress, and that was a very competitive field this year because the people who make the choices of who to nominate clearly could not commit to some women because you're supposed to have 5 and they expanded it to 7. So the competition was fierce. Lindsay did not feel like a sure win. At first I thought, oh, well, if they're going to award it to one, they're going to give it to all 3 because this is the year of like, Merrily We Roll Along is the clear front runner. Oh, and then here comes Stereophonic, but it's technically a play. No other musical in this season has the critical acclaim and the audience love that Merrily has. I'm spending an awful lot of time on just this one point, but it's important to me because it gave me so much context and it kind of changed how I looked at the show. Maybe we should talk about what I would normally do when I don't like saying I review these because it's not like I work for a paper or a magazine or some important online publisher. Again, I'm just someone who has worked in the industry before, and I love it, and I like to share my thoughts, and I want to be part of a community. So, Merrily thoughts. What do I think outside of the advertising push that they gave of, oh, it's about the 3 of them? I would argue that it's not. I've learned some things. So it's not like it flopped back when it first opened, and now we have this revival, and it's the complete opposite. It went from a flop to a major success. This show has existed in between those 2 points, and it has been retooled. I am fascinated to learn everything I can about the original production because I'm like, is anything I'm looking at still from that? Is it something that they knew it was good, it just needed polishing? Or did they have to like rework it? I did not know that the story pre-existed before Hal Prince, George Firth, Sondheim got their hands on it. I did not know that it already existed in style in that it starts in the distant future and works its way to the past. Uh, Very interesting. I What I love about Sondheim's work is a lot of it's not linear storytelling. I'm a big fan of more complicated. If I just happened to have tickets to this show and I went and I didn't know it was Sondheim, you can tell once you start watching, you're like, this is a Stephen Sondheim show. It's just filled with his flourishes. He's so good at wordplay and the way he constructs music together. He just doesn't think like how other composers, excuse me, think. Um, People are always talking, people who actually know how to read music and they understand how music is supposed to be assembled. They're like, wow, he wants to make you go from here to here and then to here. And that's not natural. It's very archaic and it's weird and it's challenging. It's not easy to sing. It's not easy to play. Um, but I think that's why people are attracted to it, not just audience, but the people involved in making it happen. They're like, well, this is a challenge. This is going to make me a better performer. So I definitely think it does that. So if you love Sondheim, you'll love this. And I am happy to report that this is not a case where if you don't have Jonathan Groff, Daniel Radcliffe, and Lindsay Mendez, you're not going to have a good time. The material is so strong that if this is a show that tours, just not with the three of them, just with anybody else, I think the material is strong enough where you don't need them in order to appreciate the good work that is Merrily We Roll Along. Thank God. Because I was like, I told myself to have this lens when I watched it. I'm like, now watch this critically. If you can picture this show without the three of them, is it any good? Yeah, I think so. Now, Jonathan Groff is the hardest one to get over because he's on stage almost the entire time, and his talent is not overhyped. I've never seen him live before. He is something else to behold. Lindsay's solid. Daniel is solid, but Jonathan, I am surprised at just how head and shoulders above everybody he seems to be. And not just him. Again, I think this is about the wives. So Beth is played by Katie Rose Clark, and Gussie is played by Crystal Joy Brown. These are names that people should be talking about. These ladies. Oh my goodness. Now, maybe they are a big deal. I don't recognize their names. Obviously, they've done stuff, that's all printed here in the playbill, but I just think they're bringing so much to this show. There's a lot to work with their characters. They're not just little side things. They should be getting way more press than they do. Huge injustice. Their characters have more impact. What Frank does to their lives is much more, I think, impactful than what he does to Charlie's life. Charlie is Daniel Radcliffe's character. So if there's a chance that this tours and you go, well, I don't know, Jonathan Groff and Daniel Radcliffe and Lindsay Mendez aren't it. Do I even need to see this thing? The answer is yes. Yes, you do. If you love Sondheim, if you love complicated storytelling in terms of presentation, it's just so good. And what I like about it is I'm a person who loves me some tech, but this is a low tech show. This is very simple. It's almost like a play. They just happen to sing sometimes. So it's not sung through. It's not like Into the Woods or Sweetie Todd where they're singing almost the entire time. There are big sections where they're just talking. And because it takes place in real environments, nothing fantastical, we're in somebody's apartment or we're backstage at a show or we're in a studio, and it's very streamlined and easy to picture yourself there because it's not too sophisticated. It makes sense why this is at the Hudson. You do not need a big theater space. There's not a bunch of stuff that flies in and out. The set changes because time changes and we are in different places, and they do very clever things to show now we're in a movie studio, now we're in an apartment. So it's smart scenery, it's sophisticated scenery, but it's not showy. It's not glittering, and you don't go merrily for the set, or the lighting or the costumes. There's nothing flashy about them. You go for the book and for the score and for the performances. That's the strong suits here. There is an ensemble, but they're not there to dance. In this exact production, Their role is to kind of help clue you in on, if you didn't know that the story is told in reverse, they kind of tell you by singing a song where they go 1974, 1973, 1972. Like the more they do that, you're like, oh, okay, I understand. So they're singing a repeating theme every time it's time to change time periods. And they don't just stand there and sing to you. As they exit, they pick up a chair and take it out, or they push a cart out, or they push a piano on. So instead of having things fly or slide on, or having stagehands do it, your ensemble does it. Very good use of your ensemble. Good idea. It works just fine because they're not in the story unless there's a party scene, because then you need bodies on stage. But it's very intimate. It's really just about these couple people and choices they make and how you really damage relationships and to an extent lives get ruined. Now this is not a happy show, because we end in the past when they first meet and they're all young and innocent and full of hope. You leave with your spirits lifted, because I do think they want you to have hope for the future. But we, the audience, by now know better. There's things that we know where they end up. And so knowing your future is not a good thing, because you see how it all ends. And it's sad. But that's okay. I think it's okay to force you to look at your own life. Apparently, they say that they've run into fans who have said this to them, that they're like, oh, wow, I have a buddy that I haven't talked to in a while. And this show makes me suddenly go, I need to check in on them. Are they okay? Like, I love shows that do that to a person. They don't have to do it, but if it happens, that's nice. Because I was like, why is this being told in reverse? Is that just a gimmick? No, it really feels like it has a point. Now, I've only seen it once. I need to see this thing again and again and again, because I want to analyze it. I want to get to know all the words, because I think there's a lot of things in there that once you know the lyrics, you're going to go, because it happened. This was one of the best audiences I've ever been in. Everyone was so attentive, which was so good, because again, it was like a play. They talked a lot, and the whole audience is like, there were moments, something happens at the very beginning of the show. It's a little throwaway line. It's not important in that moment at all. And then you get to the very end of the show, and a different character says the same thing, and the audience actually went, oh, I love stuff like that. I eat it up. It's so good. Oh, that's the one I noticed, but I bet you there's more. But I've only seen this once, so it's not, you're too busy trying to take it all in, because you don't know what's important, so you're trying to make a note of everything. It's like if you've seen Memento, the first time you watch that movie and you understand the framing device and what they're going for, you start paying attention to everything, because you're like, I don't know what's going to be important later, but you know something that they're showing you is important. And so as soon as the movie's over, you can't help but go, I need to watch that again so I can find the bits. Merrily is like that. Now, the week I was there, they announced that they were filming this. So as of filming this review, I know nothing. They filmed the day before I was there, so I was like, oh yay, I get to be in the audience that's filmed. No, that happened the day before I got there. Darn. It is the same company that did the pro shop for Hamilton. There is speculation that it'll have a theatrical release like Waitress, or it'll end up on a streaming service. I'm all about seeing something live, but if they don't tour this thing, or if it doesn't come anywhere near you, and they do release this film version publicly somehow, I do very strongly encourage that you watch it. But you have to like Sondheim, you have to like unconventional storytelling. Sondheim is not afraid to dabble with unlikable people. These are not good people, not all of them, and not all the time. Just like real people, we all have moments where it's like, wow, that wasn't a great moment for me. But then you have other moments that you're very vulnerable and you feel bad for them. So I know it's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but I actually think it's very smartly written. It's very sophisticated. it just wasn't what it was advertised. That's my only real complaint is I'm like, oh, the advertisement led me to believe that it was going to be this, and that's not what I got. But maybe it's just my interpretation of the advertising that's wrong. But the other thing, so as the show unfolds, I can't help but feel like it wants to make Frank the villain, and we're supposed to be like, oh, poor Charlie, Daniel Radcliffe's character. Oh, poor Mary, Lindsay Mendez's character. You know, Charlie's actually not very nice. There are things that he does that I'm like, well, you're not a good friend because you do this, this, this. He's not a villain, but I don't think of him as a victim either. It's almost like this is gonna be a terrible example, but it's almost like battered wives, how we all say, oh, you need to leave him, but they struggle with leaving their abusive whoever. Easier said than done. It clearly, if it was that easy, they would just do it. There is something that keeps people tied to toxic people. Charlie knows he should break up with Frank, for lack of a better term, but he can't quit him until he does some dramatic thing that I'm not going to spoil. But if you really look at his dialogue, there are some things that I'm like, well, you shouldn't ask that of Frank. That's You think you're being too Frank is being too demanding. I think you're problematic as well, Charlie. This is going to be a question for debate of who's in the wrong and who's in the right and who should have apologized sooner and who should have changed their ways sooner. This is what's good about a show like this is you can have a nice healthy debate with whoever you see the show with, or once you have friends that like, oh, you saw it, I saw it too, let's discuss. And I like that. It's not a clear, you don't have a clear hero and villain scenario. We're all human. We all do things we're not proud of. But do you try to make amends? Do you try to right the wrongs? And if you can't repair it, do you at least say, okay, well, with the next person, I will be better? Is there some semblance of, I'm going to improve myself? I think that's the most realistic thing to hope from a person. And in this case, these characters. This is why you come. Uh, I normally like to talk about the costumes and the lighting and all that. There's nothing extra special that's going on there because it's not about that. It is such a well conceived show. It feels very tight. I know it's been workshopped to death, and I know it took them a while to go. Okay, now this is the version. This is the definitive version. They have definitely figured it out. I am so happy that this was able to turn itself around. And now that I have seen it, no, I don't think you need to stunt cast in order to get people to care about this. What's so great about this selling out every week, it's like 100% capacity or very near there of this is good. As many eyeballs as possible need to be on this thing so that they hopefully other people are telling you if this ever tours or if they ever release the film version, if they ever revive it again, go see it. It's just good, your good old Sondheim fun. Because it's not the work. That's the problem. Not anymore anyway. So I'm very relieved. I had a great time, had a great seat, had a great audience. I am happy that they were all there. Um, but it, I don't think you have to have the three of them. So if you're all despair, like, oh no, I didn't get to see the three of them, that's okay. That sounds terrible. But to me, great work should live out on its own. Like we love Fiddler on the Roof and we love all these other great works, West Side Story. It's not because of who's in the roles. It's nice when they're played by really top-notch people. But the work is supposed to be so good that it is what endures time. Merrily can be added to that pile. You don't need to stunt cast in order to convince people that it's a good idea. Maybe you did initially when this first opened, but that's no longer true. I don't think. I think other people can do this well. I would have to see this again without Jonathan Groff to be 1000% sure. But I like what was going on from a material standpoint. The book is just so good. Because I have a confession. I love me some musicals. Phantom is my favorite. but I know the book is bad. I know this. The script is not great. Um, I don't always go to the musicals for their books. Sondheim is the exception, and I'm just so relieved personally that this is not like some offshoot weirdo. That the book is good. Um, Now, if you've seen Company, it's funny that this is another George Firth Sondheim collab. It feels like Company. If you like Company, you'll love Merrily. Um, Now, if you didn't like Company, keep in mind that that also it wasn't linear, but it also didn't really have a plot. This has a plot. So if you need Company to take one step towards normal, Merrily is a good take a one step over to a more traditional format that you can digest. Um, I can't recommend this show enough. I hope more people get to see it because I know a lot of people think it's inaccessible because of the ridiculous ticket prices, and they are ridiculous. I have feelings about stunt casting as well. It is a shame that that might be the only thing that's really hurting this from having more people access it, but let's all take comfort in that it's been filmed. Maybe they'll be brave enough to tour the thing. I know they might have to get different people, and not these exact people, but I actually think that's okay. I really, really do think the show itself is so strong that as long as you have talented people and people are willing to come out and see it, they're not going to be disappointed. I strongly believe that. That was the big question I wanted to answer for myself. That is my answer to myself. Have you seen Merrily? Do you agree with me? Do you think it needs these exact people or it needs big names in order to sell to people? Because that might have been true way back when it opened at what was that, September? But I don't think it's true anymore. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for sticking with me for mine. And more shows are coming because I did take care of some stuff. So see you soon. Bye.